Shalom. We are continuing in the Gospel according to Matthew. We are investigating the Hebraic background for the Gospel, and we are in chapter 14, beginning in verse 1. At that time Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Yeshua, and said unto his servants, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on John, and bound him, and put him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, It is not lawful for you to have her. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. This is Herod Antipas. There are many Herods. He is the Tetrarch, as it says. He is an Idumean, which means that he is an Edomite, and he was selected as the ruler by Rome. What happened during the Maccabean revolt, which began about 165 before the Common Era, is that the Maccabees had regained the temple and had cleansed it, and they had established themselves as the rulers. The Maccabees were a Levitical class, and so for them to take over the temple, cleanse the temple, and set those things aright, that was a job for them. But they sort of became full of themselves and appointed themselves as king. And this is out of order. The king is to come from the tribe of Judah, not from the tribe of Levi. So several years in, John Hyrcanus, who was the high priest and ruler, conquered the area of Edom, and he forced the Edomites to convert. So we have this picture of Herod, who is not really Jewish, but maybe half Jewish, and not really a legitimate king. He is a misfit in Judea. He doesn't really belong where he is. But we see that he knows enough of the traditions that he accepts the resurrection from the dead. The resurrection from the dead is also hinted at in the Talmud in this story. Rabbi Hanina ben Chama went and found the servant Antonius referred to had been killed. He said to himself, How shall I act? If I go and tell Antonius that he was killed, this is problematic, as one should not report distressing news. If I leave him and go, then I would be treating the king with disrespect. He prayed for God to have mercy and revived the servant, and he sent him to Antonius. Antonius said, I know that even the least among you can revive the dead, but when I come to visit, let no man be found before you, even as one as great as Rabbi Hanina ben Bar Chama. Actually, the end-time resurrection of Jews is widely accepted among Jewish people. Now, John's problem with Herod marrying his brother's wife stems from Leviticus 20:21. If a man shall take his brother's wife, it is an unclean thing. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness, they shall be childless. This is if the brother is still alive. This does not negate levirate marriage, which occurs when the brother has no offspring before he dies. Then the brother is obligated to marry the wife. But in this case, both brothers are still alive. And this was John's complaint. And Herod is upset because he's not really interested in following Jewish law, and John is holding him to account. Continuing in the text in verse 6, But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them, and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me here John the Baptist's head in a charger. And the king was sorry. Nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at dinner, he commanded it to be given her. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison. And his head was brought in on a charger and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took up the body and buried it, and went and told Yeshua. When we look at the text to see who anywhere has celebrated birthdays, there are only 2 birthdays actually reported being celebrated. There is this one of Herod, and the other one is in Genesis, where Pharaoh celebrates his birthday. And it seems very dangerous to be at this birthday party because people lose their heads. According to the historian Flavius Josephus, there was a prison located. It had been built by the Hasmoneans, by the Maccabean dynasty, and inherited by Herod. And the name of it is Machaerus. Reportedly, this is where John the Baptist was held and beheaded. From verse 13, when Yeshua heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Yeshua went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals. But Yeshua said unto them, They need not depart, you give them to eat. And they said unto him, We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He said, Bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, blessed, and broke, and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat, and were filled. And they took up of the fragments that remained 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Now, this is the only story which is in all 4 Gospels, and I talked about it in the John commentary. Here I'm going to wait until we see the feeding of the 4,000 in the next chapter, so we can compare these 2 different stories. Where it says he blessed, some translations insert the bread, but we never bless the bread. We bless the Lord. There's a traditional blessing, which is well documented in Talmud, which is before eating bread or any food, and that blessing is called Hamotzi. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the ground. The concept of bringing bread forth from the ground is in Psalm 104. And this feeding of the multitude reminds us of Elisha in 2 Kings 4, 42 through 44. And there came a man from Baal Shalisha, and brought the man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley, and full ears of corn in the husk thereof. And he said, Give unto the people that they may eat. And his servant said, What, should I set this before 100 men? He said again, Give the people that they may eat, for thus says Jehovah, They shall eat, and shall have left over. So he set before them, and they did eat, and left thereof according to the word of Jehovah. Continuing from verse 22, And straightway Yeshua constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night, Yeshua went unto them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Yeshua spoke to them, saying, Be of good cheer. It is I, be not afraid. So we see that they are not surprised to see a spirit, and we have seen manifestations of spirit in the Old Testament. 1 Samuel 28:7. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that has a familiar spirit, that I might go to her, and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, Behold, there is a woman that has a familiar spirit at Endor. And we know that something appeared during that seance. The words that are used in Greek actually are different. In the narrative, in Matthew, the word for spirit there is phantasma, which you can recognize as an English cognate, and it means an image or a phantom or an apparition, something that has appeared. It comes from the verb to make visible or to display. In the Hebrew of 1 Samuel, the word is ov, which actually means familiar spirit, and the Septuagint translates that with this Greek word, erastrimithos, which is more specifically one who delivers oracles. From verse 28, And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it is you, bid me come unto you on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter came down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Yeshua. But when he saw the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Yeshua stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said to him, O you of little faith, wherefore did you doubt? And when they came into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth you are the Son of God. There's many places that show that God is the one who has the power over the wind and the waves, going back to Genesis 1. And you see that Yeshua receives their worship. There are a few places where it actually talks about God who's walking on the water. In Job 9, 5-8, speaking of the Lord, which removes the mountains, and they knew not, which overturns them in his anger, which shake the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble, which commands the sun, and it rises not, and seals up the stars, which alone spreads out the heavens, and treads upon the waves of the sea. And in again Habakkuk 3:15, You did walk through the sea with your horses, through the heap of great waters. And finishing the chapter, And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out into all the country round about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment, and as many as touched were made perfectly whole. Previously, in chapter 9, we see that the woman has reached out to touch the hem of his garment. What is there? The strings, the tassels, which are commanded in Numbers, chapter 9, the tzitzit. And we read in Malachi 4:2, For unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise, with healing in his wings, and you shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. So if you want to see more about that, you can go back to the commentary on Matthew 9 about the scriptures that relate to the wings, the corner of the garment where the tzitzit are attached. Until next time, Tasim et ha'inayim al hashemayim, keep your eye on the sky, your redemption draweth nigh. Shalom.